of a cosmic energy shift that is affecting all of us, and soon we will all have that awareness. And we're kind of on the, I would say we're just a little nanoparticle ahead of the crowd. But what your report seemed to do is bring us to a point where there will be intersecting moments when the sheeple, the people who were hypnotized by the powers that be, are going to start to get it and wake up.
Yeah, and that's sort of good and sort of bad, because there will be a whole lot of them waking up right away. And having gone through the experience myself, I had the luxury of taking that pill and taking 10 years to swallow it, right?
Yeah, me too.
These poor fellows will have to, they'll be awakened by circumstances as opposed to their own universe prodding them, and they'll just have to swim,
Yeah. Well, that does seem to be the way it is. Then you've got, I just want to throw a couple of other little monkey wrenches in there. You've got the poles, which are, slated to shift at any moment. They could actually reverse. They wander all over. The North and South Pole are wandering now.
And we've had some large jerks in them recently. Very, very alarming, yes.
And what happens when that happens, and there will be no gravity for a period until the poles reestablish themselves, what does that do to the plates? I mean, there are all kinds of speculations about tidal waves and plates moving and so on and so forth.
Right.
And then 2012 is the maximum solar flare period.
Right.
And so we have a...
If I'm correct, though, in my understanding of what's going on, that there's this larger area of a magnetic field that we're moving into, the actual... really dramatic events will come when we start to leave the midpoint, after we've crossed the midpoint. Because it's sort of like the building tension and release of tension sort of phase, in the sense that we're building up to this peak where everything's getting crushed down by the magnetism, including our own planet, which causes, by the way, the internal part of the planet to be squeezed by the crust pushing on it. And, of course, the hot magma and stuff, it doesn't like it. And it's a hydraulic fluid, basically, so it's going to try and find all the little leaks that it can to escape. Really, I think that the more dramatic part of it all will come from 2012, from solstice on 2012 onward.
I agree. Although I think that we're going to have plenty of drama before that.
Oh, there's no question about that, yes. But from a planetary viewpoint, from the actual crust and that kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Now, you mentioned some interesting things that there's one thing that you mentioned in one of the shows, I think you were on Coast to Coast, and you talked about people disappearing. Now, it was in 2010, and I think you mentioned things like there's certain people that are known, like Cheney, it was an example, and certain military people around him simply seem to vanish into a parallel dimension. And then
we don't know where they're going, okay?
Yeah.
So it's speculation. At the archetype level, we have a meme for that actually descends out of the larger entity of the powers that be into, and it's at a primary level that the descriptor is disappearance. And then the associated other levels are vanish without a trace, and more repetitious words about these guys just basically going poof. And then we get into, as we drop down into a level, we get words that literally describe a fellow in the midst of a small crowd of like bodyguards, and between 1 second and the next, between one step and the next, the whole crowd just is gone.
Wow.
And now as for Cheney, that's just an example. I mean, we could be so fortunate that would occur, but reality, every time you look at the future, you change it, so I doubt that's what will happen. But we're actually starting to see some of those disappearance memes show up in this year, and they accelerate all the way through into what we call the alien war years of 2011.
Oh, no, what is that?
Well, we don't know. We have because it's in our longer-term data, we get the high archetype level words, the descriptor words first, and then it takes a longer time for the details to pile underneath and raise it up like a pyramid, so to speak, right? So what we have now are some descriptors that are coming, the words are starting to show up in reality, so we know we're on the right track, and the descriptors read alien wars. But now, let's be real clear about this, because here's the situation. NASA has actually brought out some of those words this year in their description of what they're going to do to the moon with this projectile. And they're going to bomb the moon on October 9th, 10th, or 11th, something like that of this year. with this kinetic weapon that they're going to, theoretically, the way they've described it is kind of like an afterthought. Oh yeah, we're going to send up this satellite to go and look at the North Pole of the moon and go whiz around and take photos. And oh, by the way, we're going to use the rocket that we sent it up there to blow a great bloody hole in the moon to see what's down there. And see, so it didn't, the words didn't make sense on any level, really. And they violate all kinds of treaties, and it brings up all kinds of weird issues, mysterious issues, and so on. But the language of interplanetary and war, bombing, etc., is starting to show up. So it may be much more of that on a huge level, for instance. You know, we could, for instance, have an outlier. Maybe the whole planet of humans here gets really freaked out and we send off all of our nukes out into space. Well, that might be alien wars if we did it over the course of 2011. I don't think it's going to work out that way. I think the language will be a lot more complex, and it's showing up relative to the contact meme. So there's anybody's guess as to what's going to occur, but as we get closer to 2011, we'll get more detail, presuming the Internet continues to function and we get through this next year, which will be very, very, very rough.
Right. In fact, George Ur's column today on urban survival, he was writing about the fact that the net could be shut down at any time.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get a plug in for his column because I read it every day, and even though I have no money to invest, it's a priceless information.
Oh yeah, you don't read it for that reason.
No.
He thinks of himself as this great planetary economist, and he's totally wrong. In our viewpoint, George is actually probably the equivalent of a great thinker in the Revolutionary War, like Thomas Paine or somebody like this, right?
Yes, very much so, and very funny too.
Yes, a little bit of a Will Rogers and maybe Robin Williams thrown in there.
Yeah, I don't miss his column. I catch it every day, so I highly recommend it to all of the listeners who are listening.
And that's his daily column at urbansurvival.com. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he does discuss, we frequently have these he's been with me on this since the year 2000, and we had these long discussions, and he'll boil them down into some kind of understanding for humans and put them on his column. And it helps to augment our work because I'm sitting here with my heads down to produce these reports and don't really have the time to get out there and flesh them out for everybody.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, it keeps me focused on what people really care about, because I get all, isn't this cool, and start following a thread that, probably no one other than myself really cares much about. Like, I'm all thrilled at the moment because I got a call from this guy who's a scientist in Europe, and he was saying that, got to tell you right now, you were exactly right about the Large Hadron Collider.
Oh.
And I thought, how is this? And way back when, and I'm going to have to look it up, I think it was in maybe 2007 perhaps, I'd written in one of the reports that the Large Hadron Collider was not going to be a problem for people, that they wouldn't be able to get it to work, and that basically they were going to, quote, drop their oranges, as though a juggler trying to juggle a bunch of oranges, right? And I think I even referenced that there were 5 oranges in there or something. Well, the way our work progresses, I really hadn't given that much of a thought, other than the fact, of course, the Large Hadron Collider is not working. They tried to get it working back a year ago, and they broke it. And how did it break? Well, it turns out that what actually occurred, and we're only finding this out now, was that some orange piping connected to some other device that was colored orange let tons of liquid helium out in areas that it should not have. And so they dropped their oranges on the floor, so to speak.
Wow.
And the floor got super cold, and their electricity went and got a little bluey. And now they're at the point where they're trying to pick their oranges up, but even so, they're still now saying it's an indeterminate future as to where they might actually try firing it off again. Now, what's curious about this, though, is the guy who was telling me this. He's Teutonic, was very precise in what he was saying. He repeated several times that it was his understanding that the reason that the oranges were dropped, so to speak, was because they were trying to rush this thing to completion.
Yeah.
And since this is the powers that be, this is the equivalent of the building of the pyramids. I kid you not. They put more money into this and more energy directed only from the powers that be. I mean, how many of us on the planet got to participate or vote or even knew about what was going on with this thing? And they've been, just rushing it through. And they had some screwy ideas, and we won't speculate as to what, but they've been derailed because they had human error when they were rushing it through, or if you kind of believe the other way, because consciousness field didn't want it to fire off.
Right. Very good. There are many forces at play here.
Yeah, and for us, unfortunately, it took, well over a year before we found that we were in fact accurate.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to mention briefly that relates to your idea of a space war is that there have been plans on the drawing boards by the powers that be to create a fake space war, and to have some kind of triumphant, ET race over.
Yeah.
And that would be their way of revealing, number one, what they've been up to to an extent, and of controlling the population from that point forward. So,
trying to control it. Yeah.
Trying, yes. I don't think you can do that. And
in fact, I've been speculating on that all day and doing some thought experiments on that as to what would occur when the revelation comes out. Because bear in mind, 85% of our population in the U.S., quote, believes in UFOs. Thinks that this is a real phenomenon.
Absolutely.
So, but our society certainly isn't acting that way. We're not pursuing free energy. We stop at and go along with the ridicule that the powers that be pump out on crop circles, even though that's undoubtedly a class 1 civilization using our planet for some purpose, maybe even trying to contact us, right? So, but I don't believe that they'll be successful in attempting to control the population, and indeed, they may be screwy enough to try their giant, space battle, fake invasion to get us all to fall in line.
Well, 911 was a good example.
Yes, they're not, these guys they think they're very clever, but really they're transparent and quite stupid. And they also, curiously, have to follow this strange rule that they have to announce what they're doing.
Yes, and it has to have some kind of numerological or astrological significance.
Yeah, along that line, watch out for the 7th of September and the 9th of September.
Okay, it's just before my birthday.
Well, they're both occult number sequences that are very hot.
Okay.
So it wouldn't surprise me at all to find some kind of a global terrorism sort of thing, and especially in northern India, or in India in any event, we may see some kind of increased powers that be activity on those days. But it could also happen here in the U.S. as well. I don't suspect it's going to be a tipping point or any of that, although the next big problem we'll have appears to be some storm activity likely to hit the East Coast on the 13th to the 15th of September that'll cause lots of evacuations.
Wow.
And then, of course, we're all in release language, and we still keep going until October 25th. Something occurs then, and then we get into the jolly days of the death of the dollar. What everybody needs to recognize is that you can step back from it. You can deliberately remove your emotions from participating in it, direct yourself to more of your own activities, which actually aids the planet.
Absolutely.
Every person that is not acting like a nut helps the planet progress.
Well, Clif, this hour has flown by, and before we go off the air, I want you to tell people whether they can get your report and find out more about your project, because this has been a fascinating interview, and I'd love to have you back again.
Sure. Yeah, no worries at all. Love to come back and chat. I can sit there and BS with the best of them. Anybody that wants to have a look at our stuff can go to halffasthuman.com, and we sell the reports there. The next report with the new data set that we've been running here will be out sometime after September 15th. I'm going to try and make it as close to the 15th as I can, because we need as much in the way of heads up as we can for October. All kinds of strange stuff is coming.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being a guest, and I will be purchasing your next report, because you've been kindly keeping them at a reasonable cost for us little people, and that helps get the information out there too. So I just can't say enough good high praise for the work that you're doing, and keep up the good work.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's basically all us humans got to stick together, all us Terrans, because pretty soon it's going to be Terrans staring somebody else right in the face.
That's right. All righty, thanks, Clif.
Okay, talk to you later.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.